professor. I was very successful as a professor. I got, after 3 years at the university, I got tenure and became a full professor in my 20s, which is unusual. I had 2 galleries exhibiting my work. I'd won a big award from the state of Kentucky as Sculptor of the Year. And my goal was to become a famous artist and to experience as much of life as possible and as much as I could possibly get away with without suffering the consequences. You know, I drank heavily. Existentialist, Nietzschean, God is dead, I'll do what I want to do, life is meaningless, and, you know, I would try and experience as much pleasure as possible and avoid pain as much as possible. A hedonist, a complete nihilist, didn't believe in anything. All of my friends were of the same kind of mind. Art tour with a group of students around Europe, and we were on the next to the last day of the trip, and we were in Paris, France. And at 11 o'clock in the morning, I had a perforation of the small stomach. But when it happened, it was completely unexpected and took me to the ground. So the doctor came to the hotel, knew what was wrong, told me that I had to have surgery right away, called an ambulance. The ambulance took me to the Hospital General d'Assistance Publique de Paris. Instead, they put me in a room and told me that they were getting a surgeon. The doctor, and they would try and get one the next day. This was at 8:30 that night. And I'd been to this for 9.5 hours. And when she left the room, I knew that for a long time, for several hours, I had been living from moment to moment, trying not to die. And now I knew it was time to let it happen. I'd resigned myself to dying. Said goodbye to my wife, told her to tell my kids that I loved them, etc. And she cried. She sat down, and I closed my eyes and went unconscious, which is what I wanted, with absolute certainty that would be my last sensation, my last thought. Realized that I was standing up. That was my first conscious thought, was I'm standing up, and I opened my eyes, and there I was standing up in the room that I had been right next to the bed that I had been lying in, and my second thought, other than being conscious and having my eyes open, was that the pain wasn't there anymore. I was pain-free, and I was happy. I was so excited about that, and then I began to realize that not only was I pain-free, but I felt better than I'd ever felt in my entire life. More alive, my senses were heightened. I was trying to do a reality check, and the thing that I realized was that my senses were greatly heightened, and that reality was much more intense than it had ever been. I could feel all the little bumps and lumps and cracks in the linoleum. Because I was a visual artist, I was very keenly aware of things like my depth of field was 100%. I could, when I looked at something close, like my hand, I could see the foreground in complete focus. I thought that was weird. And then I became aware that instead of my field of vision, which is normally 160 degrees for people, I realized that my field of vision was pretty much wrapped around 360, which was it was all very weird. I saw the bed that I'd been in, and there was a body in it. And when I went and looked at the body in the bed, it looked like me, but I refused to believe that that was me, because I was not only alive, I was more alive than I'd ever been, and there was this cadaver in the bed that looked like me, but that couldn't be me. So I just refused to believe that that was me. I actually, trying to explain to myself how that was not me, I came to the conclusion that they had made a mannequin of me. My only conclusion was this was the French hospital's attempt to make me think I was crazy. So I tried to communicate with my wife, I tried to communicate with my roommate. They didn't respond to me at all, which made me very angry because I was yelling and screaming at them. What's going on here? You know, what's happening? You know, what are you doing? You know, and I got no response to them, and I assumed that they were trying to ignore me, to make me angry, which made me more angry. So I heard people outside the room calling me by name, so I went over to the door of the room to see who these people were, and they said, "Hurry up, let's go, we've been waiting for you." And I said, "Well, I'm sick, I need to have surgery. I've been waiting for hours for a surgeon." And they said, "We know all about you." I went into the hallway. The hallway was creepy, shadowy, gray, and the people stayed back in that grayness. It was pretty evident to me that they didn't want me to get too close to them at that time. They didn't want me to see them clearly. But they were all adults, male and female, and everything was just gray. They were gray. So I went with them. They encircled me and led me what at first I thought was a hallway, which turned out to be space without any definition, no walls, no nothing except the surface that we were walking on. And we were scary enough, and it was so dark that I said, "I'm not going with you any further." I mean, the only thing I could do would be to refuse to cooperate, which I did. And they said, "You're almost there." And so they started push and pull, and I fought them off as best I could, which was completely unsuccessful because what had been a small group had grown as we had journeyed more and more and more, joined the group. So now I was in the midst of a mob of indeterminate size. It might have been hundreds or more, I don't know. And they were indoctrinating me into their world. It's best defined by what wasn't there, which is a world of hopelessness, a world of lovelessness, a world with no light. These were people. They weren't demons, they weren't monsters. They were people who had lived in this world, who had lived the same kind of life that I had lived. And they were familiar to me, unfortunately. I mean, I hate to admit it, but they were my soulmates, because these people who had rejected God had, sadly, in their rejection of God, rejected everything that God gives us that we take for granted. And God gives us love, God gives us joy, God gives us light, God gives us hope, God gives us the creation, the world, and in their world, all those things are absent. All else they have is their existence themselves, which is what they had lived for in this world, for their own self-gratification, and the company of people they were ended up being basically people seeking to dominate and torment one another. They're sort of emotional vampires in a way, and I was, use the prison term, the new fish, was being rendered down into deeper states. It was a terrifying prospect, and certainly something that I didn't want to be with them. I didn't want to go with them. I didn't want to go deeper. Oh, I felt absolutely that there was no way out. This was it. Eventually, I was no longer entertaining them, and because I couldn't respond anymore, so I was just lying there, completely ripped up, destroyed physically, and more importantly to me, destroyed emotionally, psychologically. Lying there on the ground, people kicking me and getting no response from me at all anymore. too spent to moan or groan or complain or anything. I heard a voice that sounded strangely like my own voice, and I don't know where it came from, but it didn't come from me. But it said, "Pray to God," and I thought, I don't pray. I don't believe in God. The voice said, "Pray to God," and I thought, I don't know how to pray. I don't pray. The voice said, "Pray to God," and I thought, when I was a kid, when I was a little child, I prayed, but I don't remember what I said. So I tried to remember what I had been taught was prayer. I unintentionally murmured some of these things, and when I did that, the people around me became very, very angry, and they said to me in language which I won't try to imitate because it was very obscene, was, "There is no God, nobody can hear you, and we're going to really hurt you for doing that." But it encouraged me to begin to try and recall and speak things that had mention of God in it, because for the first time in all of this time I was able to repel them. It drove them away from me. And they were retreating back in the darkness, screaming and yelling at me. And my mind, not something that I was consciously seeking, but my mind was looking for some way to bail out of all this, when it came up with the memory of me as a child in a Sunday school classroom singing "Jesus Loves Me." The memory was both, I could see myself in a little chair in a Sunday school classroom singing, but the important thing about the memory was that I felt in a detached way what I had felt as a child, which was, Jesus loves me. Oh, and 100% total confidence, certain, yeah, there's this guy named Jesus and he loves me. And that when I was a child, I'd prayed to him and felt that he had protected me and watched over me, that he was a really good person.